let's talk about this because there's a lot of issues involved in this too. Apparently, there's this guy Stephen Ross, who is a private developer and a very, very wealthy man, and he has done some wonderful things. Like he has headed something called what is it that he calls it? Like a rise. A rise, and this is an anti-racist organization, which is great that he's doing that work and he's putting that money in there. That is a very nice thing for him to do. I would prefer confiscatory taxes, but that's not, if he's going to have that money, it's, and he considers himself, quote, a champion of racial equality, inclusion, diversity, public education, and environmental sustainability.
That's great because a lot of rich people are jerks.
That's right.
It's nice. It's nice to hear about someone who, who's supports good things.
Now, it may be a little bit early to make the assessment about the jerk part. He also happens to be the owner of the Miami Dolphins. And here is Kenny Stills. He is a wide receiver with the Dolphins. Matt tells me he's replacement value.
No, he's above.
He's above a replacement value. So he's a quality wide receiver. And he has become aware of the fact that Ross is holding, according to the Washington Post, an event. I think it's in the Hamptons. I'm not sure where. To raise money for Donald Trump. And Tom, I don't know about you, but I cannot afford to go.
It starts at $2,500. Is that right?
I don't know. I think actually tickets are priced at $100,000 for a photo opportunity.
Yeah, there's a big escalating scale. Like I feel like it was if I remember the prices right, it was like $2,500 to get in, but then you're getting into the five figures to be in the VIP section, and then for the photo it goes crazy.
Yeah, and then
everybody has access to the photo, though.
That's right. Everybody has access. $250,000 for the package that includes a roundtable discussion. So we're looking at millions of dollars being raised.
You would think, unless it's very lonely in the tent.
Unless it's very lonely, maybe then it's just hundreds of thousands for Donald Trump being raised. And Kenny Stills has a message for who amounts to be basically his boss.
You had tweeted out in response to Mr. Ross holding a fundraiser for President Trump. Your thoughts after that tweet still, and the fact that he's holding that fundraiser tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts really haven't changed. The tweet is what it is. I said what I said.
How, for somebody who's so active in the community, especially for the Dolphins and the Rise Initiative, do you kind of feel like it's almost a betrayal or a hypocritical sense, in a sense?
That's what I was saying in the tweet, is that it just didn't really make much sense to me for what the mission statement was for Rise and, what they're setting out to do. It doesn't make sense for me for him to be trying to, or to be supporting the man's campaign who is seems to be against all the things that he's trying to work towards.
Stephen Ross has stood.
Have you talked to Mr. Ross?
I haven't.
Do you plan to talk to him about this?
I'm sure at some point.
What would you like to say to him?
I mean, the same thing that I've already said. It just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't align. To be running a nonprofit focused on equality and talking about sports and equality, and then to be holding a fundraiser for a man that we know isn't standing up for that same cause or championing that same cause.
Good for that guy.
Seriously.
Say that about his boss.
I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
It's pretty straightforward. And apparently, too, people should know that Ross sits on the board or he's the CEO. Is he the CEO or he sits on the board of the company that owns SoulCycle and Equinox, which are two, I don't know if they're national brands, but they're big in New York City. And
absurdly expensive.
Yeah, they're way too
gyms.
expensive. This also brings me. Sorry, did I interrupt you? I interrupted you, didn't I?
Well, I wanted to just say that the Equinox and SoulCycle issued a statement saying they do not support the Trump fundraiser, and this is what's sort of stunning to me. Okay, he responded to criticism in a statement on Wednesday, saying that he's always been an active participant in the democratic process. And this is what he said. This is a stunning statement. I have known Donald Trump for 40 years, and while we agree on some issues, we strongly disagree on many others. And I have never been bashful about expressing my opinions. So here it is. You're doing some bad stuff. Here's several $1 million to keep on doing it.
Yeah, what's he gonna, is he going to like rake aside half the money to go to the people against Donald Trump to reflect the parts that he disagrees with? Or is just all the money going to Donald Trump?
That's right. Like I could have raised $100 million, but as you know, I disagree with 60% of what you do. So here's a check for 40.
Yeah.
And this is the real base of Donald Trump, by the way. Like, I didn't mean to imply earlier that poor whites are voting for Trump in large numbers. Poor whites, by and large, do not vote. Poor people, by and large, do not vote. The people who are voting for Trump, giving money to Trump, and supporting Trump are the same people, by and large, who always vote for Republicans, which is to say people who own gyms and gym franchises and whatnot.
I mean, this is the bottom line. You know, I don't know why people would necessarily be surprised about a guy like Ross supporting him, but it's this notion of like, I'm a billionaire and I've criticized him to his face. And so my giving him several $1 million,
me giving him $300,000 to sit at a table with him and like.
No, he's not giving the $300,000 to sit at the table. He's probably already giving him that.
Oh,
He's supplying the tables.
Oh, right.
He's the one who's getting all the other rich people to come in and pay that.
Oh, yeah. The other guys who are going to pay $300,000.
He's corralling this. He's
Who also may, they probably also disagree with him on important things.
Who they very well may.
Yeah, they feel bad about it.
But I'm willing to pay him $250,000 so I can sit at a table and tell him I disagree with his trade policy. And here's the thing is that, and I already hear Dave Rubin on Twitter bemoaning the fact that everything has become so politicized. Like they're friends. And I think this should be the rule. You can have friends.
Sure.
And you can be friendly with Donald Trump if you want in your
buy him a
personal
beer.
life.
Well,
buy him a beer.
Buy him a soda.
Buy him
a Diet
soda.
Coke.
Exactly. But when you do a political fundraiser for him, that's a political act. I mean, it almost goes without saying, since the word political fundraiser is part of the words political
and
fundraiser.
It's not even just like, well, he's my friend. He's running for office. I feel like I should give him some money. You are bringing other people in. You're asking people to come and give him even more money, right? It's not, that's not. I mean, I wish my friends would do that for me.
And your ability to do this is predicated on all those businesses that other people buy or pay for. And so you cannot divorce the enormous amount of money that you are arranging and providing for Donald Trump's political campaign from the way that you raise it. And so the idea that, these things shouldn't be politicized is absurd.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a big sports head, but it seems to me if ever there's an industry very ripe for being taken over and run by the workers, it's professional sports, right? Because these people have a skill that is very difficult to replace. And what do the owners do? Like nothing.
Well, that's not true. They're the ones who get the tax breaks and the funding from the cities.
Oh, right.
That's true.
They're the conduit. They're the ones who show up in a sweet-ass car and convince some local bureaucrats.
Yeah, actually, we should try to get athletes to take some more initiative on that sort of thing.
There's really no reason why, they couldn't do it.
It seems like the stage is set.
Like, you just have the unions basically just say, like, guess what? We're going to set up our own. And I don't know. At first, what you need, I mean, you'd
think that, but I just feel like I think that there were some really grim lessons to be learned from the Colin Kaepernick situation, right? I feel that it just seemed like...
You mean in terms of who the other players are?
No, in terms of like what owners and fans are willing to sacrifice for the sake of their politics. I mean, you've had there's such a rich history of teams employing like terrible people and being like, look, I don't like what he's been serially acquitted of, but he helps us win and we got to make it happen. And they had really effectively created this idea of sports as this amoral realm where like if you could contribute to the team, you were going to be in no matter what. And then NFL teams chose to lose games rather than employ Colin Kaepernick, right? They chose to bring out guys who were objectively terrible at playing quarterback and to lose football games and to have tens of thousands of people sit in the stadium and watch some schmuck throw the ball into the ground rather than let Colin Kaepernick have a job.
Well,
and so when you see
that though,
I mean, it's the owners in the league, but the fans kept showing up.
The fans kept showing up.
Right. So that's a really sort of grim measure of how much they feel like they can damage the product for ideological reasons and not suffer for it. So,
well, the idea of the players taking over though is a different one. Like you'd end up with the same product, and they would just own equity. Like it's almost like the argument they make about things like Uber. Like if you could it's harder. I think in some ways it's harder to do it with Uber drivers. To get all of the Uber drivers who don't know each other, they don't show up at the same place to work, they don't hang out in the same place. If you could get them to get a loan to develop to an app developer, then boom, you're in business. Then
the drivers are losing $5 billion a quarter.
What's that? Well, probably not needing to do the same. They don't have the same sort of like
predatory overexpansion, right?
Exactly, and. Yes.
Well, the NFL outlawed, for instance, what the Green Bay Packers situation with their city there. And I think if a city like Green Bay can do it, I mean, maybe it's easier if it's smaller, but I mean, financially they can handle it.
All right, but it's not just, this is not theoretical, the idea that people don't like the idea of political boycotts.